Okay, I'm sure that you've all heard what Wendy Miracle has said about Arrow Season 5, and I have very mixed feelings about Laurel's return. And there are many ways that this could be done, and I'm not exactly taking it at face value at this point because we don't know yet the full extent of Flashpoint. And I'm pretty sure that they've confirmed it's going to be temporary in the sense that we'll see the altered timeline as a result of Flashpoint, and then that timeline should be corrected. Like, I'm pretty sure Barry is going back to rectify what he did, so he's going to go and correct the timeline that was a result of Flashpoint. So Wendy saying that Laurel being alive and well is something to do with Flashpoint, that could mean one of two things. In my mind, that either means we are seeing Laurel alive and well as a result of Flashpoint, which will be a temporary thing because Flashpoint will be corrected and we'll go back to the previous timeline. So she's either alive and well within the Flashpoint story, and then she's back dead again when Flashpoint is corrected. Or an alternative would be when Barry goes back, he goes back in time to before, like obviously he'd have to go back prior to Flashpoint, he would have to go back before he made that decision. He'd have to go back further than that, and if he goes back far enough prior to Laurel's death, he could then warn Oliver the way that he did with the Felicity thing and Vandal Savage, and they could prevent her death from ever occurring. So those are, in my mind, the only likely scenarios in which Laurel's death or life are dependent upon the Flashpoint timeline. So she's either alive temporarily within the Flashpoint plot, or she's alive for good after they correct Flashpoint. And I have very mixed feelings on both of these things, and to be perfectly honest, I sway in the negative. Like, if she's alive temporarily for Flashpoint, that's pointless. It's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard, because it's just clickbaiting. Because they know people want to see Laurel, they know people were annoyed, and they think that, because the thing is, Arrow, the showrunners on Arrow aren't actually responsible for Katie's new contract. Katie was, let's use the word promotion. Her new contract makes her a regular on all of the CW comic book shows, not just Arrow. So if it's like a joint contract in that regard, Arrow has to have her as a series regular. They have to have her like once or twice a season at least in her contract. So if Arrow is just looking for ways to fulfill their end of the deal, they might put her in just for the Flashpoint storyline, just so they can say, okay, we've covered all bases. So I think that she would be there just because it's in her contract that she has to be. Whereas on the Flash as Black Siren, they have a lot of leeway to do a lot with her, and they don't have to go back on themselves in order to do that. Whereas Arrow would have to make a lot of corrections and have to rewrite a lot of the things they did in order to make her appearances like the only way that Arrow could keep in line with Katie's contract is to either have consistent flashback sequences of Laurel throughout the remainder of the show, or bring her back. And at first, when Katie's contract was first revealed, they kept saying, well, we can do flashbacks, she'll be in flashbacks, you'll see her in the premiere, you'll see her last words. And they weren't saying anything about present day Laurel. It's only this recent interview with Wendy that has suggested present-day Laurel by saying alive and well. But saying that we will see Laurel alive and well, that doesn't mean she will actually be back from the dead. Like I said, it could be a temporary Flashpoint thing. Just because the network wanted Katie as a regular on all the shows, that doesn't mean Arrow have to be happy about it. I mean, obviously they're going to, like, say that they are, because they're not going to be like, no, we're not. You know what I mean? I think even though I'm not happy with the direction of Arrow, I think if I was one of those professionals and I was writing something that I thought was amazing and I was adamant that that was what I wanted to do, and then people from all sides were telling me that was a shit decision, I think that there would be a little bit of resentment there. I think that begrudgingly, when you're kind of in that line of work and you're in the entertainment industry, you have to listen to your audience, because, you know, the longevity of your show is dependent on the amount of viewers and what people think. And last season, every single magazine or podcast or website, every reputable source that reviewed last season was very vocal about their disappointment. There were a lot of them that were pretty, you know, there were no amazing reviews. There were people, the reviews ranged from indifferent to bad. And that's not a good thing. So when every single reputable source, every single publication that is reviewing you is either disappointed or really, really annoyed, then you probably should realize that you fucked up. And there's a different, and just because they might recognize they've made a couple of missteps, that doesn't mean that they're happy about having to go back. No one likes admitting they were wrong. So there might be a little bit of resentment coming from some of the people at Arrow, thinking, you know, we wanted this to work, we wanted to go through with this, and now it's gotten to a point where we can't dig our heels in any longer. So they might choose to include Katie in Arrow no more than is strictly necessary by her contract. So I'm not really holding my hopes very high. And to be perfectly honest, even if they do bring her back for good and they resurrect her and they erase her death and they act like it never happened, I still won't be happy, because that's not the point. I mean, I know that there are a lot of people that stopped watching because Laurel got killed, but from what I've seen, the vast majority of people were gravely dissatisfied with the show long before they killed her. Her death was just like a final nail in the coffin where people had given up. Prior to her death, people were annoyed and disappointed, but they held hope that there would be improvement. And her death was just where the line had been drawn. So Arrow bringing her back in some kind of vain hope that this will fix everything, that's not really the point. I think they're missing the point. It's like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. Like, it's a very, very temporary fix that completely, like, ignores the core of the problem. Her death was never the be-all and end-all of the problem. Her death was never really, like, for example, all of those publications that reviewed the season finale, Laurel was dead before the season finale even happened, and very, very few of those reviews even mentioned her. But yet, still, people were dissatisfied with how that season ended because the season overall was bad. Not because they killed Laurel. Killing Laurel was, I think, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back, but it wasn't it wasn't the only reason why it was bad. And I think if they bring Laurel back, it will piss me off because I'm not watching Arrow anyway. I haven't watched Arrow since the episode before she dies. I can't remember if I've told this story before or not, but because I'm British, if I want to watch the show live, I have to live stream it at 1 o'clock in the morning, which means it's 2 o'clock in the morning by the time the episode ends. And I was at a house party And because of all those photos had been leaked, I kind of knew that Laurel was dead. I think everyone knew before it happened, but I think I was kind of hoping that it wasn't her. I mean, I was struggling through season 4 anyway, but I was at this house party, and it got to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I figured, you know what, I'll just look it up. I'll go online and I'll see who died. And so I did. I was on my phone, I found out that Laurel had died, and right then and there decided that I wasn't going to bother watching it. So for me, it didn't feel like I was giving anything up. Like, it didn't feel like I was, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm so upset, I'm so annoyed, I don't want to watch this anymore. It wasn't even like that. It was just, oh, they killed her. Okay, I just won't watch anymore then. I mean, when Arrow started, I was live streaming it every week. I was watching it live at 1 o'clock in the morning, going to bed at 2, getting up and going to work at 7. And I was excited. I was happy to do that every week because I wanted to see it as soon as possible. I didn't want to risk spoilers. I wanted to know. And now it's like, oh, who cares? And all of season 4 and most of season 3 was like that. It was like, oh, okay. And so killing Laurel wasn't the only problem. It was just where I gave up. And I think the biggest problem going into season 5 is all these new characters. If they bring Laurel back in amidst all of these new characters, the season is just gonna go from bad to worse. Because what's the point? What's the point in all these new characters? Like, I don't care. I don't care about them. No one cares about them. Because up until this point, the cast has been pretty consistent. I mean, Nyssa and Sarah came in season 2, but every single main character, or any character that had any relevance or substance, has been around for years, and we all care. I mean, they introduced Curtis last season, and I think that he was kind of unsung for most of that season, but the response to him has been pretty positive. And I think he worked very well in that capacity. He was like a little bit of a comic relief character, and he was a lot like Felicity was in season 1. People loved him. You know, he was quirky, he was funny, he was like a bit of a sidekicky character where he wasn't kind of, they knew what his limitations were, and they knew how he resonated, and they played to that. And I feel like having him be a main character in the next season, you run the risk of him becoming like Felicity 2.0, where he worked really, really well, people loved him, people wanted more, and then they gave too much and ruined it. And so, I mean, and Artemis, and was it Wild Dog, and fucking Ragman, I don't care. And I mean, I don't even care about some of the characters that have been there from the beginning. Why would I care about the new ones? And when you have such a large cast of heroes, then no one really, you run the risk of more and more of them being thrown to the sidelines and being pushed out, because there's only so much screen time and too many characters to share it between. So no one really develops very well, because you don't showcase them. I think Arrow's biggest problem over the last 2 seasons is that it doesn't know how to showcase its characters to their fullest potential. And because these characters are understated, they never reach their potential. They never get to that point, and everything feels very, very flat. Like, they were going on, they spent months and months going on and on about this surprise death scene that was going to be amazing. It was going to be permanent. It was going to be she's so dead. It was the deadest death of any death. You were supposed to be on the edge of your seat. Who's going to die? Who's going to die? And then they gave it all away, like 2 episodes before it happened. And then 6 months later, they're potentially retconning the entire thing because it blew up in their face. And they've made it pretty obvious, and they've said multiple times they didn't even know who was in the grave when they announced the grave. So if it was really that important, if it was really going to have that much of an impact, you would know immediately who you were killing. You'd know. Because if you thought that this was going to have a ripple effect and it would impact the entire show as they were saying it would, then you'd obviously know who it was, because you don't say things like that and then draw straws on who's in the grave, do you? I think that the whole thing was so convoluted and didn't need to happen. And Malcolm should have, I mean, why is Malcolm there? The problem with Arrow is that it doesn't seem to know how to handle its characters. It doesn't know how to handle them. It doesn't know how to take them to their full potential. Because Malcolm reached his full potential in season 3. He became head of the demon. He is the new Ra's al Ghul. And why is the head of the demon in Star City giving random cryptic messages whenever the plot needs a helping hand? Because that's all he does. The head of the demon shows up out of nowhere, says some cryptic bullshit because they need it, because they haven't thought their plot through, and then he fucks off again. It doesn't make sense for the head of the demon to be in Star City doing that. I mean, he reached his full potential in season 3. He took over the League of Assassins. And if they'd left him there in Nanda Parbat with the League, he would have left on a high point. And that's my thing with Arrow, is that they either kill off characters too soon before they reach their prime, or they drag out characters for too long until they become overused and flat. And if they can't find the middle ground, if they can't utilize their characters well enough, why are they throwing more characters into the mix? Because we already know Diggle is coming back to the team. They've announced, they've released photos of his new helmet, which looks a hell of a lot fucking better than that other one. So we know Diggle's coming back, and obviously Oliver's there, and Thea's gonna return eventually, and Felicity's there, and you've got Artemis and Curtis and Wild Dog, and now potentially Laurel. Like, you do not need that many people. You don't. None of those new characters even needed to be introduced. And there are characters in Arrow that I don't like, but I care more about the characters that I hate than the new ones, because they don't need to be there. I don't care what happens to them. I don't care at all. At least the characters that I hate, I've seen them evolve. I've seen them change. And so what happens to them next will have some kind of impact on me, because I've been there from the beginning. But I don't know what it's doing. I don't know what Arrow's doing. And I think bringing Black Canary back is just clickbait to get viewers back. And the thing is, they don't seem to realize that that was never their problem. Killing Black Canary was not their problem. It was the one thing that sparked outrage, but people were generally quite passive about the show for a full season before they killed her. People were watching it because it was on. People were trying to stick it out because they'd been there from the start. But people were generally disappointed with the decreasing quality. And then when they killed her, people couldn't believe they killed her. And it did make an impact, and it got a reaction, but it wasn't the reaction that they wanted. It made people angry, and it made people realize, why am I even watching this show anymore? Whereas, if the show had maintained a very, very high quality, and all of its characters were utilized well, everyone was strong, everyone was powerful, and if Black Canary had been killed and she'd gone out on a high, and she'd gone out swinging, and she'd been the Black Canary we've been dying to see from the beginning, and they killed her, yes, people would have been angry, yes, people would have been upset, but there would not have been such severe backlash. It would not have been as explosive as it was, and they would not have needed to retcon and go back on their decisions as extremely as they've had to do now. And bringing Black Canary back will not change the quality of the show, because the show's problem is its writing. It's writing and it's the lack of priorities. That is the core problem. And if you don't address that, it does not matter how many new characters you bring in, it doesn't matter how many storylines you retcon, because the show will not improve. Like, they treated Black Canary that badly when she was the leading female, and we're supposed to believe that it'll improve now that she's series regular? No, it's bullshit. I don't believe it for a second. And I don't have faith in these writers. And a lot of people have been saying that because Jeff Johns is stepping up and taking a more active role in overseeing what is and isn't done on the TV shows, people have faith that it will improve. People have faith that he will be a great creative consultant who will kind of veto any terrible decisions. People have faith in Jeff Johns, and don't get me wrong, I love Jeff Johns. I have a lot of respect for him, but I think that it's gone too far now. I mean, it's too little too late. And I would like to believe that his influence will be felt and changes will be made. But the thing is, they've brought in all these new characters without even considering their old ones. And the season hasn't even started yet. They can't get rid of their new characters when they've just brought them in. So we have to put up with these new characters for the perceivable future. And while we're putting up with these new characters, the characters that we've spent the last 4 years loving are being pushed aside. So it's not really giving me much confidence that it's going to be worth watching. Another thing that I'd like to point out, I mean, it's not really relevant to what I've been talking about, but a couple of people actually, I'll see if I can find the screenshots, they messaged Mark Guggenheim on his Tumblr, and they asked him, one of them asked specifically about Amanda Waller and whether or not her death had been mandated by DC. And Mark confirmed, he actually said to them, it was not mandated by DC. Amanda Waller's death was not a decision made by DC. They were not told to do that. And I feel like a lot of the backlash that Arrow has received for killing characters, people have dismissed it because DC said they had to. But Mark Guggenheim himself has actually said that that wasn't the case. When someone else said to him, how come Arrow has to lose all these characters for DC? Mark said, I never said that. So basically, people have been blaming DC for decisions that they never made, and I always thought there was something kind of fishy about that, considering that Supergirl and Flash hadn't had the same treatment, and that's because their showrunners haven't decided to kill off these characters. So every single character that people have said, no, they're going in the movies. No, that's wrong. They were written off because Mark Guggenheim wanted them written off. And now they're coming back because he's had to kind of realize that he's made mistakes. So not only is Black Canary coming back, but Deathstroke is coming back too. Two characters who he flung under the bus. And now he's had to kind of eat his words about that, because it's been proven that people do care about these characters and what they stand for. And I mean, I have had people come to me on Tumblr and tell me that Katie was fired because she can't act and no one likes her and she's an alcoholic and she's a nightmare to work with. And all of that has been proven false. None of those claims ever came from a reputable source. They were made up, literally fabricated by people who wanted to shit on her for no reason. And she never did anything to deserve that. Regardless of what your opinion was of Laurel as a character, Katie as an actress did not deserve that, especially because she's someone who has had alcoholism run in her family, someone who tried very, very hard to portray Laurel's addiction as accurately as possible, someone who got emotional when talking about it when she won her Prism Award. And these people made those hurtful rumors about her for no reason other than the fact that they didn't like a character that she was paid to play. And that's disgusting and inexcusable. And all of those people are now eating their words because Katie was promoted. Katie was never fired. Black Canary was never going on to a movie. That was never the case. I just don't understand why these people are so hateful I know that maybe Laurel's emotional breakdown was a little bit tedious and rather annoying when it was happening, but looking back, those things were what made her as strong as she was. And she was one of the most developed characters. Emotionally, she went through more than almost anyone else did. And they treated her like shit throughout most of it. I mean, in season 2, when Laurel was crying to Sarah and asking for forgiveness, and asking Sarah, begging Sarah not to hate her, why? Laurel never did anything to Sarah. She was rightfully angry and rightfully heartbroken because of choices that Sarah had made, but all of those feelings were warranted, because if my sister slept with my boyfriend, I'd kill them both. But Laurel is crying, asking Sarah not to hate her, when Sarah should be the one apologizing. They demonized Laurel from the beginning for things that were completely human, things that were out of her control and were never her fault, and the fandom ate that shit up and treated her like she was shit. And I don't know, they botched her character from the get-go. They never treated her with the respect that she deserved. They never made her the hero that she always should have been. And maybe this is a hard reset, and maybe they will learn from their mistakes and do her the justice that she deserves. But the truth is, Black Canary fans do not need Arrow. Arrow needs Black Canary fans. The reason that Arrow is doing this is because people were negative about their finale. People hated season 4. A lot of people hated season 4. Even the people who still love and enjoy and watch the show will admit that season 4 was its weakest so far. So even people who love the show were disappointed with a lot of the developments over the last year. So they need to bring people back. And they obviously think that Black Canary is a way to do that, but what they don't seem to realize is that that is not their problem. That's not their core problem. And people who are Black Canary fans they can read any Green Arrow comic book they want, any Birds of Prey comic book they want, any Black Canary comic book they want. They can watch Young Justice, the animated series, Justice League Unlimited. They can watch DC Showcase Green Arrow. There's even music. There's Black Canary music available that was supposed to be like the EP for Black Canary's band in the comic books. There is a vast variety of material that Black Canary fans can enjoy. They don't need Arrow to love Black Canary. So Black Canary fans don't need Arrow as much as Arrow clearly needs them. Because why else would Arrow desperately try to appeal to them? You know, they're all saying, oh, you'll see Katie in the premiere. You'll see Katie in the 100th episode. You know, episode 10 of season 5 is a huge thing for Laurel fans. And it's like, okay, calm down. Maybe you should think about your writing. Like, I don't know what they want. I don't understand any of it. And I don't think it's a good move because they've never treated her with respect before. Why am I to believe that they'll start now? And like I said, Black Canary being alive or dead was never the real problem. It was the point of no return. But they were heading there for a very long time. And I truly believe that if it hadn't have been that, it would have eventually been something else. Because this show was just digging its hole for a good year before that happened. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm going on my 2 Flashpoint theories based purely on the Wendy interview where she mentioned Flashpoint specifically, but there are a lot of other ways that they could bring her back. Like from the beginning, I said that it was sketchy that they cut away just before she died. Like she was having that conversation with Oliver and then they cut away. So I thought, well, earlier on in season 4, Oliver had employed that trick where he made someone appear to be dead when they weren't. So I thought that Laurel and Oliver had hatched a plan together where they fake her death. That could still happen, I suppose. Then also um, they could retcon it so she comes from Earth 2, the way that comic book Black Canary did with her sonic scream and everything. They could have a different Laurel Lance that comes in from the Supergirl universe. There are a multitude of ways they could do this. They could get Constantine back to bring her back. They could get Legends of Tomorrow and Sarah and all to bring her back. There are literally so many ways to bring her back. It's actually laughable that they tried to make out that they couldn't. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I don't care. I don't think that this will improve the quality of the show. I think that, I mean, I don't want to be this huge, massive, pessimistic person, so I will say that I do think that it's a step in the right direction, and I do hope that Jeff John's influence is felt, and I think that if anyone could help them, it would definitely be him. So at this point in time, I'm not going to be watching Arrow, but I am open minded about where this season goes. And if it does progress in the best possible way, best case scenario, then maybe I will pick it up again. But I'm not really in a hurry, and I won't be tuning in for the first episode. Probably not the first few, until I kind of see online how the progression is going. But yeah, I do think that this is a step in the right direction. And yeah, also, I made a Twitter account. That's a thing now. I can't guarantee I'll actually use it because Twitter's not really my thing, but I guess I'll put it in the description and you can follow me if that's something that you do. So, yeah,